This is a conference on the integrity or lack thereof of the election that will be conducted nationally tomorrow, although it's been ongoing through early voting all over the country for quite a while now, and we're actually getting early voting results, which may or may not be accurately reflecting the will of the American people. Our concern today is the integrity of the ballot in the upcoming election, especially the electronic ballot. My name is Harvey Wasserman. I'm the senior editor of Columbus Free Press and freepress.org. We are responsible for breaking most of the major stories that came out of Ohio 2004 and the theft of the election that year. We are back here 8 years later with even more concerns about the integrity of the ballot, especially of the electronic ballot. We are in the process, as we speak, of filing a federal lawsuit in Columbus, Ohio, asking for the removal of some software that has been installed into the computer system. So we will go into greater detail, computer vote counting systems. We'll go into greater detail as we proceed with this press conference. We are very, very privileged to have some very important people with us today, starting with Jill Stein, the nominee for the presidency of the United States from the Green Party of the United States. We have Lori Grace with us. Lori, what's the name of your organization?
The Institute for American Democracy and Election Integrity.
Okay, and Sarah Mansky from
No More Stolen Elections.
No More Stolen Elections, and Clint Curtis. Clint is one of the most important of all the whistleblowers on electronic vote theft and the rigging of electronic voting machines. He was with Tom Feeney, Congressman Tom Feeney, no longer Congressman Tom Feeney, from Florida, and was one of the very first important computer programmers to come forward and blow the whistle on manipulation of the electronic vote count. So this is a serious conference with a very substantial amount of important substance to it. And without further ado, the speaking order will actually be Jill Stein, our presidential candidate, will lead. I will follow with Sarah, and then Clint, and then Lori Grace will wrap it up for us. And we will then have Bob Fitrakis on Skype, hopefully from Columbus, as they're in the process of filing this federal lawsuit.
And he will call when he becomes available, and we'll just take him at that time.
Great. So as we speak, they are furiously making paper copies. They have permission to file manually with the federal court, and they will do so as in the course of this press conference. So without further ado, Jill Stein, our candidate for president from the Green Party of the United States.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Thank you to all our panelists, and thanks so much to the press for coming out to hear about this very important issue. And we are here to stand up for the integrity of the vote, to stand up for the right of American citizens to have their vote counted. We are a nation, a democratic nation, a democracy in which we must have a system of one person, one vote, not $1, one vote. And we're focusing today on real concerns that have been raised about electronic tampering with the vote, particularly in Ohio, but questions are being raised really all over the country. Before going into that, I just want to mention that even before getting to this 11th hour concern about electronic tampering, that our election system is highly compromised much further upstream from the money in politics, from the incredible structural barriers to actually getting on the ballot that have required third-party campaigns like mine to spend about 80% of our time, resources, and staff just getting on the ballot in order to bring our viewpoint to the American public. These are hurdles that the major parties who wrote the rules have been exempted from, but which any opposition party is then required to deal with, which frankly they are quite prohibitive. And while opposition parties are not illegal in this country, in effect they are virtually impossible because of the structural barriers to our participation. Likewise, we are essentially locked out of media coverage, locked out of debates by the Commission on Presidential Debates. So there are a whole variety of reforms that we call for, everything from public financing of elections to equal ballot access. We call for universal hand-counted paper ballots. We call for universal registration, automatic registration. We call for a constitutional right to vote so that states cannot be illegitimately establishing barriers to the vote, establishing prohibitive voter ID processes, establishing techniques for purging large groups of voters from the election rolls. We also call for abolition of the Electoral College and, as I mentioned before, replacing the Commission on Presidential Debates. We also call for nonpartisan election commissions, as opposed to the election commissions now, which are headed by operatives for the political party and make it quite possible and easy to tamper with the vote. And along those lines, I should mention also that we call for an end to electronic voting, and in the meantime, for public scrutiny and transparency in the use of any software, so that the counting of our votes is not taking place by private companies in a secret process hidden from public view. This is a setup for fraud, if there ever was one. So specifically, we're here today because, as Harvey mentioned, a case is now being filed by Bob Fitrakis, a Green Party candidate for Congress in Ohio. And that case, Harvey will provide you the details, but it focuses on the use of new software for the optical scanners, the ES&S machines. And this new software is untested and uncertified and in violation of federal and state election laws. And it establishes basically an open door to fraud and should not be used in this election. This is a case of a private company using secret software that has not been certified. So specifically, my campaign is calling for the impounding of all election results. Election law actually requires the records to be kept, but in 2004, we know that those records were not kept by some 55 or 56 of the 88 counties in Ohio. So in order to ensure that the law is upheld, we are now calling for the impounding of those election records. And then we are calling for a hand count of the paper record of these elections, as well as an independent public review of the electronic counts for which there is no paper trail. And there are obviously steep costs regrettably, that have been imposed on taking these steps to safeguard our vote. We should have these, our votes should be safeguarded as a matter of law. It's a sad commentary on our election system that we, the voters, are required to spend an inordinate amount of money in order to safeguard our vote. But we are calling for these safeguards in any event, and we'll do the best that our campaign can do to ensure that all of these steps are taken. And in addition, we call on the other presidential candidates to join me in pledging not to concede the vote until these steps have been taken and there has been a reliable and full counting of every vote.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jill. I'm going to fill in now on what's gone on in Ohio, what's happening now. This election protection movement got a birth of sorts in Ohio 2004. We came to Washington from Columbus with several busloads of people after John Kerry conceded prematurely the vote count in Ohio. As we all know, we have an electoral college that has allowed the person who comes in second in the election to become the President of the United States. This has happened in 1800, 1824, 1876, 1888, and of course in the year 2000. We continue to believe that John Kerry was the rightful winner in 2004, as was Al Gore in the year 2000. So one of the reasons we have such an infrastructure in Ohio is, of course, no Republican has won the White House without carrying Ohio. It's only a couple of Democrats have done it, and most of the media now is claiming that Ohio has about a 50% chance of deciding this election. We are very disturbed, even 8 years after a highly controversial outcome in Ohio, that there are irregularities with the software in the voting machines that will be counting the election, counting the apparent votes in Ohio. Tomorrow I will be voting in the town of Bexley, Ohio. I am registered as a monitor to look into the precinct and see who comes into so-called service or recalibrate or do other things, let's say, to the electronic voting machines in my precinct. And I am authorized to do that as a Green Party voter. We are hoping to have other people do it around the state, but we do not have a comprehensive network that will be able to give us a full and fair review of what the votes that are counted tomorrow in the state that is likely to determine the outcome of this presidential election. Now, in 2004, as Jill mentioned, we won a federal lawsuit. We had a federal injunction in the King, Lincoln, Bronzeville lawsuit, federal lawsuit, of which I was a plaintiff, requiring that the 88 county boards of elections in Ohio retain all records from the 2004 election. And we had a new Secretary of State come in, Jennifer Brunner, and she set up a repository in Columbus. And when she went to collect the records from the 88 counties as mandated by federal law, we found that 56 of the 88 counties had destroyed their ballot records and other electronic files that would have allowed us to have a recount. And as a result, no one was prosecuted for the destruction of these records. We got excuses from various county boards. One said that a coffee urn tipped over and spilled on their election records. One said that they were mistakenly sent out with the recycling. One said there was a flood. It was the biggest dog ate my homework series of excuses that we've heard. So now we face a similar situation, perhaps even worse, in 2012. We have a group, a company called Hart Intercivic, which is counting the ballots in Hamilton County, which has about 800,000 people, home of Cincinnati, and a small county in northern Ohio. Hart Intercivic is owned, the majority shares are owned by the HIG Investment Group. A number of the principals in the HIG Investment Group are prominent fundraisers and functionaries in the Romney campaign. The Romney family itself are founding members and major investors in a company called Solamere, S-O-L-A-M-E-R-E. Solamere has major investments in the HIG Group, Capital Group, which owns the controlling shares of the Hart Intercivic voting machine company. Now, the family claims that its investments in HIG Capital are segregated from the voting machine company. Well, we can talk more about that later on. But the reality is that the HIG machines, the company owns Hart Intercivic, which will be counting ballots, which could decide the presidency of the United States. Quite likely, actually, if Ohio is in fact a turning point in this election, and it's a close election, then certainly there will be enough ballots cast in Hamilton County to make that distinction. Now, we also, to make that decision, actually, we are also filing today. Bob Fitrakis is in the process of walking the suit into the federal court about a computer patch that's been put on the software, which on ES&S machines, which, by the way, also owned by prominent Republicans, which will allow access to the electronic vote count, which could, in fact, affect the outcome of the election. And we have Clint Curtis, a computer expert, brought in who will comment on that possibility. It's important to note that the major electronic voting machines around companies around the United States, Dominion, Hart Intercivic, ES&S, Sequoia, and one called Triad, which is prominent in Ohio, are owned by prominent Republican families. We are in the process of conducting a public election on privately owned machines. The courts have ruled that the software in these machines, even though counties or states may own these machines, bought with federal money, own the hardware, that the software itself is proprietary and is not subject to public review. It's an astonishing situation. Jill Stein and the Green Party are calling for the impoundment of the results, but the reality, and it's absolutely essential that that happen, but the reality is at this point in time, under federal law, the public will not be able to fully scrutinize the electronic vote count. And so millions and millions of Americans have been casting votes, will especially cast them tomorrow on electronic voting machines, which essentially will go into some black box netherworld, and we will be denied a comprehensive vote count. This is not an acceptable situation in a country that calls itself a democracy. Sweden, Germany, Japan, Canada, and Switzerland all conduct their balloting on paper ballots. They are hand counted. It's done by midnight. In Germany, the exit polls have agreed with the official vote counts to within 0.1% of the vote count. Ireland had electronic voting machines and has just gotten rid of them and reverted to paper ballots. I am hoping that within 4 years, at the brink of our next presidential election in this country, that we will be talking to you about a country that will be casting its votes entirely on hand-counted paper ballots. That's the purpose of this exercise. We are glad the Green Party has taken a lead on this, and it's an agenda item which could not be more important to the survival of our democracy in this country, or what's left of it. We also, of course, as Jill has said, want money out of politics. We want a 4-day voting weekend, a national holiday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, in which all the students get out of college and high school and they run the polls and they count the ballots. And universal automatic voter registration. When you turn 18, if you're a citizen, you are automatically registered to vote. No more of this voter registration drives. And I should note in passing also, I'm done here, is that one of the most disturbing things we've seen occurring in this election season is the systematic disenfranchisement of millions of Americans, not merely by the photo ID and people are saying, well, the photo ID requirement is being overturned by the courts, therefore it's not significant. We expect throughout the country that partisan voter registration personnel and people in the polls will falsely tell people that they are still required to have a photo ID. And we expect this to happen. We've seen many other shenanigans designed to restrict the franchise. We call it the Jim/Juan Crow movement by the GOP to prevent people of color from voting. I will say finally that one of our complaints on the electronic voting machines, we have seen touchscreen machines where people in 2004 pushed John Kerry and George Bush lit up. I thought this proved that the Republicans had a sense of humor. But we saw this in 7 precincts in northeastern Ohio. We are just now hearing complaints from the Republicans that in Colorado, people who are pushing Barack Obama, pushing Mitt Romney are seeing Barack Obama light up. So our gripe here, we are obviously not here stumping for Barack Obama. Our purpose is to make this a democracy where the ballot will count. If the Republicans can steal an election from the Democrats, and as they have done in 2000, 2004, if the Democrats can steal elections from the Republicans, as it did throughout the South in the years after the Civil War, then they can both steal the elections from third-party candidates and organizations that really could make a difference in this country. And so as long as our ballot is compromised electronically and otherwise, we will not have meaningful change through the electoral process, and that's why we're here. Next, thankfully, we have Sarah Mansky from the Green Party, and please tell us your organization.
I'm Sarah Mansky. I'm with No More Stolen Elections, which is a project of the Liberty Tree Foundation. No More Stolen Elections is a nonpartisan campaign to protect the voting rights and election integrity, and is dedicated to the idea that votes belong to the voters and not political parties. Votes belong to the people and not political parties. That's really important. Voters need to be able to self-organize and respond in case of contested elections to safeguard their right to vote. Because if the politicians have their say, they will usually do what's politically expedient rather than what they should do on principle. And so Liberty Tree Foundation started this project after what happened in Florida. And in 2004, we coordinated voter mobilizations in over 80 communities around the country. And that ended up supporting the Ohio recount. In 2008, even though the election wasn't very close, there were reports of voter assemblies in over 40 communities, and certainly many reports of election fraud in the United States. In 2011, No More Stolen Elections was responsible for demanding a recount in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And we also were involved with the Wisconsin Wave in doing a audit of the Wisconsin recall, where we had independent hand counting of the results in many counties in the state. We're calling for people to sign a pledge of action. You can sign this pledge on our website. Many prominent people have already signed. We put up the pledge this time around last week, and we've already had 10,000 people commit to take action if the election is stolen in the United States. We're also asking people to organize voter assemblies in their communities, and we have very nice software that you can use on our website to do that. At the voter assembly, voters get together and they talk about their election experience, any problems they faced, and it's also an organizing tool to support voters in other states and also to build a movement for hand-counted paper ballots nationally. And if you encounter any election fraud on election day, we want people to immediately report it on our website, what you saw, where it was, and we have software that allows you to do that. So the website is nomorestolenelections.org, and we ask everyone to go there right now and sign the pledge and organize a voter assembly in your community.
Thank you very much. Clint Curtis.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, take the mic, please, Clint. I want to point out that Clint was testified in Columbus, Ohio, after the 2004 election, and has been one. You need to move that over? Okay. Clint has been one of the very few highly qualified people to risk his career to come forward as a whistleblower on election protection issues as they relate to electronic voting. So we're grateful for you, Cliff, and if you can give us a rundown on what's possible and not possible in this coming election, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Like I said, I'm Clint Curtis, and basically, if it's a computer program, everything is possible. Absolutely everything, because you control the code, you control the universe. You can make somebody win who has no vote at all, and you can make somebody who has 1,000 votes completely disappear. It's simple to do. It's math. Basically, back in 2000, I was a computer programmer, and Congressman Tom Feeney became a congressman. He was then Speaker of the Florida House, and he'd just been Jeb Bush's running mate when he ran for governor the first time. And he requested a software program that would go on electronic voting machines that would allow someone to come up, hit a few hidden spots on the screen, and make the votes flip and cascade down. Easy to do, right? I assumed at the time he wanted to basically make sure that didn't happen. So I wrote the program and how you stop it. And then the head of the company said, well, we're not really interested in how you stop it. We're more interested in how you do it. And handed it off to him. I was surprised, because I'm thinking, well, who's going to let the opposition party put software on the machines and then let them judge the elections without any way of checking it? Lo and behold, that would be the Democrats. And they allowed that to happen in the Help America Vote Act, which was more really Vote for America Act. And that's what turned out, basically. I'll show you what I wrote for them, if that's any indication, here we have this little thing. I don't know if you can see the numbers on there, but we have cat as a Democrat, dog as a Republican, and pony as the Green Party. And you can see the votes down here. Cat is winning by, what is that? Looks like about 1 million votes. But if you know where to go up and to hit the right spot without ever having to do anything, you will now see that dog is now winning. The Republican just flipped that quick. So it doesn't take anything at all. It's a matter of where you put the code, where you hide it. There's a million ways to do it. You can do it with scanned paper ballots as easily as you can do it with the touchscreens. The only thing is with the scanned ballots, you then have paper you can count. Which sounds good, except states like Florida then outlawed the ability to recount those ballots. Why would you do that? Who knows? But that's what's going on. So this is what can be done, and it can be done very simply. So to allow that to happen without any method of verification, you've basically given it away. And the only way to counter it, if you just want to believe the machines, is to get so many numbers going in your favor that the flip becomes obvious. There's a lot of people said, Romney now has these machines in his pocket and these people. Well, that's true, but he's also behind in every swing state by 2 or 3 points. So I think that if he actually did the miraculous win, it's going to be really obvious how that happened, because one poll could be bad within margin of error, maybe even 2. All of them are not going to be bad. You can't pull all of those out at the same time without somebody going, The question is, what can you do about it after the fact, because it's already happened? And if you can't see the ballots, although hopefully we can, and if you can't see the machines where the votes are invisible completely because there is no way to verify, there's no way to reconstruct it unless you go door to door and ask the voters how they voted and then compare that to the tally that came out of the machine. A very extensive job, but it could be done.
Would you demonstrate it once more so I can get a shot of it?
No. Of course. Let me reset it so it flips the right way for you. Ding. Ding. Once again, cat is now winning by about 1 million votes. If you go in here, when you write the code, somebody comes in, they vote for cat, right? Click the cat, click submit. You will notice here's your totals right here. It will go up by 1. It will go up by 1 and act like a real voting machine 1 billion times if you want it to. So there's no way that even if you have the smartest, brightest, most honest supervisor election in the world, that they would ever be able to catch it unless they know the proper sequence of buttons to hit. It's impossible to catch because there's nothing wrong, because it's actually a program that's not making errors. It's doing exactly what you want it to do, which is flip the votes when you want to flip them and don't flip them when you don't. That's that simple. Did you get that one?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Cliff, if we'd known you were going to do that, we'd have brought a cat and a dog in here for,
And a pony.
or maybe a dog and a pony. Okay, we will come back to you, please. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for Cliff. Lori Grace, please.
Well, I've been involved with election integrity work for a long time, starting with Audit the Vote in 2004 and verified voting and black box voting. And I actually remember studying the 2004 returns in Colorado, where Bush and the Democratic senator got about the same votes. And I wondered whether your system was used, since they had already paid for it and they took it away with them. And then also another interesting thing was that our Democratic senator in California, Barbara Boxer, got about the same number of votes as President Bush, also in 2004. And the incidence of split ticket voting is actually fairly rare, where you vote for a president of one party and then the senator of the next party. So anyway, as I said, I've been very involved, and also became aware of what happened with Choice Point the other things in the year 2000 election, the purging of the felons, and got in contact with Greg Palast. So anyway, and then also with Harvey and Bob Fitrakis in 2004, where we wrote up what appeared to be the case of the 2004 election, and their write-up became the speech, served to help form the speech of Barbara Boxer and Stephanie Tubbs Jones. We had created the connection between the two, and that was the first time Senator Barbara Boxer stood up to talk about the problems with the voting in Ohio in 2004, the first senator in 200 years. So anyway, I've been involved with many different things and looking into issues around a man named Mike Connell and other things in 2008. And I wanted to let you know that California is more or less a paper ballot state, but there are problems even with paper ballots, which is what Clint brought up, which is being able to access the paper ballots after the vote has occurred. And I wanted to let you know that Proposition 8, which was permitting, it was saying that gays don't have the right to marry, actually lost in it won in California. And I was involved in the study of actually exit polls, differences between exit polls and vote totals in 2008 regarding Proposition 8, and there were 12 to 14% differences between the exit polls and the vote totals, as was Election Defense Alliance, was another organization. And we tried to bring this to the attention of the fraud department of the Secretary of State and to the Secretary of State ourselves, and we weren't really able to get any traction. So what I've ended up doing is, at the advice of Eva Waskell, who's been involved for 20 years in election security issues, was getting involved with supporting the Trachtenberg election verification system, which is an open source way of counting ballots. And I want you to know there's only one county in the entire United States that actually counts votes a second time with an open source system. Now, open source means that everybody can look at the ballots and how they're counted, and that means all the ballots in Humboldt County, California, are run through a scanner a second time, a scanner that's not connected with Hardinger Civic, which is the company that's used there, and then the vote totals from the second time are compared with the first time. And since the first time they used it, when Diebold was being used at Humboldt County, and they showed a big discrepancy of about 300 votes, Diebold terminated their relationship with Humboldt County in a hurry, and with a sense of arrogance, I would have to say. And Carolyn Cernich went on to pick out the Humboldt system. Now, one thing I wanted to let you know is it's not very popular to, I find with both secretaries of state and registrars, they don't look like something bad has possibly happened on their watch. So I set up this institute to also award awards for excellence in supporting election integrity on the part of registrars and secretaries of state. And we did deliver a excellence award to Carolyn Cernich and to Tom Stanionis of Yolo County in California in 2010. And I just want to tell you, I was in so much mystery for so long about how the media would not bring out, certainly mainstream media, bring out issues around election integrity to the general public. And I couldn't understand it. I was sort of an idealist when I began back in 2004, but I developed a simple little model that comes from following the money, which I can say in 2 minutes or one. And that is that if I'm a political candidate and I'm wanting you to vote, I certainly don't want to think or support the idea of fraud, because then you'll feel your efforts were wasted, okay? If I'm a political candidate and I want you to write a nice check for my campaign, how much money can I raise for you if you think that that your money is going to be kind of thrown in the toilet, and because of the possibility of election fraud? Then if I'm a television or a news station or radio station and I look like I'm presenting something about fraud as a possibility, how can I get the money from the Democrat and Republican parties and other organizations supporting candidates, PACs, and different things like that? Because I look like I would be supporting something that would make their money look poorly placed, okay? And then, as I mentioned to you, well, the other thing is the exit poll companies are hired every other year. Matovsky has been hired every other year by the media consortium, and they get a lot of money for what they're doing. And what happened in 2004 is their raw data showed that Kerry won, and then there was this whole questioning of the exit polls at that time that Republicans were less likely to come to an exit poll or to answer the truth of the exit poll, and this sort of thing, and basically the Republican Party dissed exit polls. So where exit polls are the gold standard of truth in many, many other countries, in our country they're not, and now we only have exit polls in the 19 swing states as of this year. So what happens now is the raw data is considered proprietary, and then we look at the vote totals, which can be affected electronically, and then the raw data is massaged to meet the vote totals. So this is, in my view, a problem. And independent exit polls are seen as biased in attracting certain people and not other people to answer, or framing the question in some way, and those are dismissed too. So, and then I mentioned to you about registrars and secretaries of state wanting to look good and not really being very comfortable with showing that problems, either mistakes or fraud, could possibly happen. I do want to let you know something really refreshing. And that is when Carolyn Cernich in Humboldt County, California, decided to adopt this Trachtenberg system where you count votes a second time, what happened was, first of all, people would come up to her in the street and say, "Thank you so much for supporting our vote and for supporting election integrity." And she was voted the most popular elected official in Humboldt County. She has been voted that over and over again. Additionally, I want you to know that she's had 0 requests for recounts since she's adopted this system with a second counting of votes. So this creates greater economy and ease. And then another thing that happens is that if you look at the voter turnout in her county, it's about double what it is in other counties in California. So I consider this remarkable, because she has taken a real step to create voter trust, and anybody can count the ballots in that place, and if it's put on a CD, then the Republicans get one, the Green Party gets one, the Democrats, everybody can look at it. So I'm excited about promoting the system, and it may be a possible solution. I definitely believe in hand-counted paper ballots, and I'd love to see them. But being that we have 10 million votes counted, for example, on hard intercivic optic scans this year, we may want to use this system to do some recounting. And also, let's take a moment to look at really finding a way to celebrate secretaries of state and registrars who take a stand for integrity, and to realize that we can evoke voter trust, voter popularity. I mean, there's so many people that don't want to vote this year because they have lost trust. Let's restart trust. And whether it's a Trachtenberg system or hand recounts, I'd love to see it because I'd love to see our democracy flourish.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lori, very much. We are now, is Bob available? Not available, okay. Do we have questions from further comments from people on the panel? Jill, do you want to say anything further? Should we take questions from the?
I should make a comment about the person from Colorado.
Okay. Well, let's take a question, then we'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Wayne Hanson, WMR. I have a question for Jill Stein and a follow-up. Ms. Stein, in 2004, Ralph Nader, who was the Green Party candidate, was discovered he was receiving questionable donations from Republicans in swing states, I believe New Mexico, Florida, and Pennsylvania. Is there any indication that this year, because it's so close in these swing states, that your campaign is getting money from similar sources?
We have a prohibition against accepting money that comes with strings attached. And how we define that basically is that if you are a lobbyist or a PAC or a super PAC, or you hire a lobbyist, we consider that essentially a telltale sign, if lobbyists are involved, that there is some vested interest in an agenda. So money that is attached to lobbyists directly or indirectly, we do not accept. If there have been Republican individuals donating who are not attached to some organization, it would be hard to detect them. But put it this way, we have certainly not heard from anybody about their intentions. And donations to our campaign are spread out over, we're a national campaign, so it would be very hard to donate to the campaign that's operating nationally in the hopes that it be used effectively in that swing state. And finally, I would say that the money that we have in total is such a drop in the bucket compared to what the other parties have that it would be very hard to accomplish something meaningful with that.
And a follow-up for any panel members. About 40 years ago, the old National Bureau of Standards, which is now National Institute of Standards and Technology, tried to implement federal election standards so we wouldn't have this problem with different machines. And these were lever machines back in those days. And they went to Congress and they were flatly told by members of both parties, listen, a clear majority of the members of this Congress got here as a result, in some cases, of fraud. We're not interested. Is there any thought about trying to get the NIST back involved in that process to set federal election standards? Because their first attempt to do it 40 years ago fell very flat on Congress.
Well, I think the same really applies to all of the election reforms that we're talking about. It's very hard to move public financing, to open up debates and all of that, which is why, I myself have come to be involved with a political party, having started out as a physician, trying to, ensure that we had a healthcare system that people could afford, and that we weren't polluting people and poisoning them with pesticides and mercury out of our incinerators, et cetera. They were just, very obvious public interest solutions to which there are incredible obstacles for implementing. I say I'm now practicing political medicine because it's the mother of all illnesses. That's what drives me to an independent political party. We actually passed campaign finance reform in my home state in Massachusetts by voter referendum. by an overwhelming margin, by a 2-to-1 margin. We passed public financing. This was in the late 90s. And very shortly thereafter, the legislature, which was overwhelmingly Democratic, about 85%, repealed that voter referendum on a voice vote, no less, adding insult to injury, so that they wouldn't have to run contested elections, because they were largely running uncontested. About 80% or so of our elections were uncontested. They've now reverted to being uncontested again. So the system protects itself, and it has brought us where we are. As citizens of the country and the planet, we are paying an inordinate price right now as the bailouts continue to bail out the Wall Street banks again to the tune of trillions of dollars. Our jobs continue to be offshored. Wages continue to decline. Healthcare costs continue to skyrocket, even under the Affordable Care Act in my home state, where we've had it for 5 years. Bankruptcies, medical bankruptcies, continue absolutely unabated, which tells you how affordable the Affordable Care Act actually is. And climate change has really come home to roost now. And what's being done about it? Absolutely nothing, which is why I come, and many of us come, to be working on a political party so that we can reach critical mass. It takes a social movement out in the streets together with an independent political voice to work to the point where we get to critical mass to take back our democracy and all the things that depend on it. It's a long haul, but you never know when these things suddenly tip. And we saw that happen very unexpectedly in the last year in Tunisia and in Egypt, where Chris Hedges himself tells the story about how the democracy proponents in East Germany, on the very day the wall came down, were saying, maybe 10 years from now, we'll make some progress, and then suddenly they did. So we're working to make that progress as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Fitrakis, microphones, please. Lori, microphone.
Can you pass that microphone over, maybe Cliff? And I don't know how to do this.
Your microphone up with Bob and Jill.
Oh, okay.
Put this phone to the microphone.
He's on the line.
Bob, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. So let's put him on that microphone there, if you would, and we can ask him. Bob, can you tell us the status of the lawsuit now?
It was just filed in U.S. District Court, the Southern District of Ohio.
Can you all hear?
Case number is
If you point the speaker, I think the speaker's on the bottom.
CV 1015.
Can we write that down again? What is it again?
2:12 CV 1015.
Okay. Can we have a round of applause for the filing of this lawsuit? Okay. Bob, can you tell us, please, the content and the nature of the lawsuit and what we're trying to get at here?
Well, the lawsuit itself is seeking a temporary restraining order to remove the untested and uncertified software that was placed in 87 of the possible counties. We know they've admitted to 25 where it's already been installed. So what we're trying to do is simply remove what the Secretary of State says is benign software for communicating from at least every county where it is, but the 25 that we know of, including Cleveland and Columbus.
Now, are these county-wide installations?
Yes, they are. They're essentially a way of reporting information, tabulation information from the county boards of election to the Secretary of State's office.
These are on ES&S machines, is that correct?
Correct. They're on the ES&S machine.
So what is the potential danger? What is the potential damage from the installation of this software that has prompted the filing of this lawsuit?
Well, the fact that they're untested and, of course, uncertified, it's like any malware. The reason you test these to make sure that they don't have the potential to tamper with the vote count while it's being reported. So that's the danger, and that's why both federal and state law require that these be tested and approved ahead of time, not done secretly at the last minute. This contract was signed on September 19th.
How many voters will be casting ballots on machines whose transmissions will be affected by this software?
Let's see, potentially more than 4 million voters in Ohio.
4 million out of the 5 point. Well, I guess in 2004 there was 4.4 million. I think it actually dropped to 5.4 million. I think it dropped to 5.2 in 2008. So you're saying that 80%, close to 80% of the vote count in Ohio could be affected by this software?
Yeah, that's the information that was leaked to us from the Secretary of State's office.
And of course, the polls are showing Romney and Obama virtually tied in Ohio. So clearly, then the software. This is actually a patch. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can. It's custom code that has been entered, so it's commonly referred to as a software patch. Some would just say it's a new package. And remember, they did this, quote, experimentally, and that's what gets around the testing and certification. But when you, under Ohio law, when you actually have experimental software, it's only allowed in a few precincts, not for use all over the state in at least 39 counties where it's being done right before the election. It doesn't seem to meet any standard of certification or any exemption as experimental software. The software itself was developed in 2002, so we're wondering why 2002 software, which will be customized with a secret code, would be being put on 10 years later.
Bob, can you tell us about the procedures of the federal court now and what you expect?
Well, we're trying to get an emergency hearing this afternoon and seek a remedy that, since this software is so benign and the contract surprisingly so small at $19,000, they'll simply remove what they claim is to be harmless software.
Do you have a judge?
It has been given to federal Judge Frost.
Oh, it's been awarded. It's been designated.
It's been assigned to Judge Frost.
And where is he sitting?
Again, it's the U.S. District Court in the Southern District of Ohio. And he actually sits in Columbus.
Okay. When do you expect to hear back from the court?
I'm thinking within the next hour.
Okay. What else can you tell us about this?
Well, that Secretary of State's office needs to comply with the law. I think people need to draw a line in the sand. I'm the Green Party co-chair in the state, and that when people put in, uncertified and untested software, you've got to demand that it be taken off the machines. Both major parties must comply with federal and state law. That is the position of the Green Party of Ohio.
Jill, do you want to comment? Okay. We have a comment from Lori Grace here. A question? Okay, go ahead.
Could you tell us more about the other leak that you got from, I guess it was the Secretary of State office, but I don't really know, and about the surprise visits from Harvey Civic to adjust the motherboard? What info do you have on that?
Well, that's a related story that was covered in the freepress.org, which I edit. But we've now found out that despite denials by Amy Searcy, the director of the Hamilton County Board of Elections, is that motherboards at the precinct levels were replaced in August of this year. She told the Washington Post, as well as other news sources, that they did all their own maintenance. We have now found at least one $15,000 contract. To the contrary, where in fact these motherboards were being replaced on machines at the precinct level, and maintenance was being done by Harvey Civic out of Austin, Texas.
Oh, so this is the HIG Capital Company, which is HIG having a majority interest in Harvey Civic, and HIG
Yes,
with a number of Romney family operatives in the company.
Correct.
Okay. People in the audience here, any questions or comments for Bob Fitrakis on this? Yes.
Why did you wait so long to bring the lawsuit when if they put them on September 29th? Because you didn't find out until just now?
Why did we wait?
Well, we made requests back in April. Every single county in Ohio, to their credit, complied. The Secretary of State's office did not. So we began to demand this information, and we were being stonewalled. So we actually went and visited them in person, and they told us that we were too busy. But apparently somebody at the Secretary of State's office heard what we were asking for and gave us the information, even though the official position to this day is that the Secretary of State's office is too busy to give us the contractors that are putting on the experimental software.
Yes.
So we didn't find out till a whistleblower sent us the information on Thursday.
Go ahead.
For the average American to understand this is that you've caught the Republican cartel with the voting machine software. You caught him cheating, caught him red-handed. Is that how I understand it?
I don't know, whether we caught him red-handed. What we did catch him doing is putting on what I believe and am alleging to be illegal software that violates both Ohio law and federal law. Whatever else they claim, we found them breaking the law and withholding information under the Ohio Public Records Law, ORC 149.43.
So is it all right if I go there and video the vote at those precincts? Can I have the precincts and I'll go there and witness it myself?
I'm not sure they're letting any outsiders within 100 feet of those polls in Ohio. You may recall that Secretary of State John Husted just told the UN election observers that they would be arrested if they came into Ohio and attempted to observe at polls.
Yes, please, Sarah Mansky. Go ahead.
And I did just speak with the UN observers, and they said because of that, they will not be in Ohio observing any of the election. My question is, are you calling on the people of the United States who are concerned about this to call the Ohio Secretary of State's office and demand that this software be removed?
Yes, I think
Okay,
that
wait a minute.
rather than being totally reliant on the federal courts, is all American citizens concerned with democracy, regardless of party or ideology, should call the Ohio State Secretary of State's office and demand they remove this illegal software.
Do you have a phone number?
I don't, but I may be able to get one here in a second.
Clint Curtis, can you comment on, can you pass the mic down to Clint there, please? Can you comment on the credibility of the possibility that this software could be used to tilt the election?
Of course it could. You're changing the program, you're putting in new subroutines. What exactly is the update supposed to do? You should probably start from that level and say, why are you updating it anyway? If it was working before and all you're doing is counting votes, how is this counting votes better or different?
Bob, what does the Secretary of State's office say in response to Clint Curtis? You can keep it there, Clint, for a minute, about the positive function of this computerized update. Why are they doing this in their framework?
Well, first I want to give out the following number, 1-877-767-6446. That's 1-877-767-6446. What they say is that it will help in reporting, whatever that means. It will facilitate communication. Our affidavits provided by our computer experts say that the moment that you allow direct input in the voting tabulation, the moment you go over the internet and exchange with this custom code, that it makes it vulnerable with that interface that anyone could in fact alter the county vote totals, and that you really created the Secretary of State's office as a man in the middle, capable of virtually anyone who's inserted, bad code. This could be malware. So they've really, other than saying it was easy, they never explained, why coding from 2002 at the last second, which was not tested and certified, would have to be put on. They're ease, that it's making it easier, whatever that means.
I think we need to step back a minute. This is an astounding situation here. The whole world is watching Ohio, and there has been no media coverage of the fact that the electronic vote count is totally fungible. That's the reality we're looking at. Is that fair, Clint? Our computer expert?
How would that work? How would somebody?
Okay, Bob. How would it work? You're free to draw on our experience with Ken Blackwell in the late night of elections on 2004. How would the Secretary of State, who is a Republican, and the Governor of Ohio, who is a Republican, flip this election if they so choose?
Well, look, you're allowing private, for-profit, partisan vendors, and that's what was done with Triad, which emerged under scrutiny by the Judiciary Committee by John Conyers in 2004. Triad is a well-known, run and owned by a well-known activist, right-to-life family that has been in controversy before for replacing hard drives on the central tabulators in Hocking County in 2004. So the fact that you've got ES&S and you're working with other maintenance people like Triad to update these systems, and ES&S has custom coding that's secretive and proprietary, and they're a partisan company, should concern everyone. If you go back to 2004, Craig Unger has a great story on Salon.com, and also in his book, Boss Rogue, a story that we originally reported in the Free Press. Essentially, in that case, they outsourced the vote tabulation reporting to a failover site. They claim that, so to speak, the mosquito bit the elephant and killed the supercomputers in Ohio. Hence, a partisan Republican high-tech company got to tabulate the vote, creating a man in the middle attack, according to Steve Spoonamore, a computer expert. But if you read closely the Salon.com article and Craig Unger's book on Boss Rogue that just came out, is that when he tested the counties and gave it to a statistician, Richard Hayes Phillips, he gave them 40 counties blind, and 20 of them turned out to look like they were numbers within the margin of error of the exit polls, and then the other 20 all had numbers that fell well outside the exit poll, and those 20 were the ones that occurred after 11/14. after the private contractors took over the Ohio voting system in 2004. Now you have the same possibility with this untested, uncertified code in violation of federal law and in state law that was installed and secretly coded by partisan for-profit election machine company owners.
Yes, sir. Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, Andrew Craig, the Justice Integrity Project. Bob, or for anyone, one entity that has the ability to get to the bottom of this and impound evidence is the FBI and the Justice Department. However, they don't normally like to get involved unless there's public support for it, because they'll be accused of being political or sore losers. What can you say, if anything, about outreach to the FBI to get involved? And again, if there's a criminal conspiracy, they can impound all the stuff, whether it's proprietary or not.
Well, my attorney, Cliff Arnebeck, has notified the FBI, and we forwarded them the stories, we forwarded them the contract. All the information that was leaked to us is in possession of the FBI and the U.S. Justice Department. And, I quite frankly, it's in violation of law. I would hope that the court would order that all the machines where this potential malware, this unauthorized software was placed, be in fact, impounded, and we bring out the crime tape until we see what's going on there. I think it should be treated like the crime that it is. They installed, this is in quote, experimental. The only reason they call it experimental is to get around the law, to get around the fact that it's uncertified and untested. So I think that we should treat it as a crime scene already.
Well, one quick follow-up.
You've described the man in the middle, and from my understanding, it can literally be very few people involved. However, in any conspiracy, as Machiavelli teaches, there are some people involved. And how many people does it take to pull this off? And if even one of them cracks, then everyone goes to prison, correct?
Right. Unfortunately, all it would take is one person driving around the 39 counties since September 19th to install all malicious code, or whatever else is the equivalent, an Easter egg or whatever they installed that was uncertified and untested. So it doesn't. You're absolutely correct. It could involve very few people, and it may just involve installation people. This causes this concern because in the same pattern emerged in 2004, where the Triad company, through the Rapp family, a very small family that was servicing 44 counties, showed up the week before elections, including in Miami County, where we found 2,500 phantom votes, people that hadn't signed into the poll. We found where 549 people had voted. Suddenly votes were being recorded for 679 out of 689 voters in Concord Southwest precinct. So, and the other pattern, there was a guy named Sam Hogshead who worked for this very company, ES&S, and he showed up in Miami County as well. So all of this last-second patching was done even in 2004 when we got results outside the margin of error of the exit polls. But Sam Hogshead, when we Googled him, we found a newspaper article where he said that one of his goals in life was to shoot a liberal in the head. So right before the liberal would die, that the liberal would know that he, Sam Hogshead, had killed him, not the gun. So those are the types of people that are installing and working for these major companies. There's no background check. a lot of, and Bev Harrison Black Box Voting has done a good job here, is a lot of these people have been involved in, dubious and or criminal activity. So, what we really need to do is have a background check on who these people are that are installing these secret, coded software at the last second.
Mary Beth?
Well, to sum up then, you've got, is it true, just glancing at it, looks like Ohio has been pretty well covered then. You've got the key county of Hamilton with the Hart Intercivic, and then is the rest of Ohio covered by ES&S and the patches?
Well, once Hart Intercivic is in, you've got more than 4 million people, 39 counties, virtually all the major cities are covered by those companies. That is the 3 C's, Cleveland, which is Cuyahoga County, Columbus, which is Franklin, and then Hart Intercivic, where major donors from Romney, control the board of Hart Intercivic, is where Cincinnati is. So, yeah, the vast majority of voters will either be covered by this custom secret software patch installed at the last minute, or be voting on machines that the Romney family's major donors, have the controlling interest in, and his family himself invests with that very company, Hig Capital. So yeah, they've got most of Ohio covered.
Okay, is there any other questions here that we need to cover? Anything else? Lori Grace, we have 5 minutes to go, so if you can't do that.
Bob, do you want to comment on something about how we find that a lot of these electronic voting machine companies kind of work together in a certain way, even Hart Intercivic, ES&S, and this company named Seidel? Could you mention something about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I mean, what we're dealing with here is really what is a cartel. A lot of these people go from company to company, whether it's whether it's Debo that gets busted, doing with their CEO, Walden Odell, saying he's going to deliver Ohio votes, and then their machines malfunctioning in Toledo, where Lucas County is, and then they get bought up by ES&S. But really, a couple of brothers, the Yarosevich brothers, Bob and Todd, developed a lot of this software, and they seem, they appear to be back at ES&S. When there was a call made recently, it said, Bob's at the headquarters in Omaha. And again, spokespeople like, Melissa Schaefer have worked for virtually all of these companies. And then it becomes hard to find out who owns them. They seem to pass them around. But Seidel is another huge problem if you allow e-voting, online voting, or voting over the internet, which they're contemplating in New Jersey, because 26 states and various jurisdictions, counties, will allow them the direct input of overseas ballots for people living overseas and for the military. And that company is owned primarily by Booz Allen Hamilton, which is owned in part by the Carlyle Group, which became famous for war profiteering during the Gulf War. Not the Gulf War, but the recent attack on Iraq, and has very close ties to the Bush family. So yeah, it's really only a handful of people that seem to be passing these companies around, and they admit working together. So, and there's some new people on the scene, Dominion, that needs to be looked at very closely, as well as Seidel. And you wonder why we would hire a company headquartered in Spain to input our overseas ballots and the military vote. And again, as the Free Press reported, showed the pictures when they showed up. When we showed up at their U.S. headquarters. It was a private residence in Glen Allen, Virginia. It doesn't look like they're actually doing any real voting activity or business out of there. It looks like a mail drop. So it looks like a cartel, a small handful of companies that totally control the e-vote in the United States, and many of them have ties to the intelligence community. If you look at Carlyle Group, you've got the former James Woolsey, the CIA director, Mr. McConnell, the former NSA director. So you wonder why people so tied to the industrial community would be attempting to get into the election business and doing it in a way that the intelligence people could compromise the votes of Americans.
Bob, if you could, please, we have to wrap up. Lori's going to say one more thing. Can you give us the docket number again of the lawsuit?
Yes, it is the U.S. District Court, Southern District of Ohio, Judge Frost, the docket number 2:12, CV 1015. That's 2:12, CV 1015.
And what is Judge Frost's full name?
I believe it's Greg Frost.
Greg?
Greg, Greg, yes. I believe his name is Greg Frost.
Okay. Lori, did you want to?
I just want to mention that there was on the docket a visit from by Skype of Harvey Branscombe of Election Quality in Colorado, and they are having some major problems. They're most 80% mail-in, with mailed-in ballots being rejected. And I just wanted to bring up from the standpoint of how companies are all working together. These electronic voting machine companies are working together. That there was a lawsuit that got resolved with Marilyn Marks, and it was a lawsuit in Colorado where the registrars all banded together to say that ballots were private documents, and the judge ruled against the registrars. When they opened up the boxes, they were able to find that you could determine who voted for what. In other words, the person and what they voted for. And there are two major data mining companies, one called TLO, or The Last One, is by Hank Asher, a former cocaine smuggler, and also Melissa Data in San Diego, that are now data mining enormous amounts of data about voters. 179 million voters are registered in the Melissa Data database, which works with smart tech, and what they advertise is targeted marketing. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Bob, I think we're going to wrap it up. Is this called Fitrakis versus Houston? Is that the name of the lawsuit?
Yes.
It's FITRA?
And ES&S. It's Houston and ES&S.
Okay. Versus Robert Fitrakis versus John Husted, Husted, and ES&S. What's the rest of it? Is there a formal name there?
The actual name, let's give it election, I think security system, but I forget you'd have to look it up. I don't have the pleadings in front of me, but if I can find it for you here, just let me look at the pleadings to see what official name.
Okay, we need that.
Systems and software.
So it's Robert Fitrakis versus John Husted and electronic, or is
Election systems and software.
Okay.
Election systems. Thanks.
Okay, Bob. We'll be back to you. Thank you very much. I think we can wrap this press conference now. Very good.
We want to share this on YouTube.
This has got to go
as viral as much as possible.
Absolutely.
The only people we're missing here is American media.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
corporate media is what
There's
we're missing.
YouTube.
Bob, we'll be back to you. Thank you.
Anyway.
All right.